Hi friends, welcome to Concept. In this lecture, we will discuss what are the theories of international trade. We have five theories. We have Mercantilism, we have theory of absolute advantage and theory of comparative advantage. At number 4, we have product lifecycle theory, and in the last, we will discuss factor proportions theory. We have example for these theories. So first, we will start from Mercantilism. This theory started in mid 16th century. This theory says that a nation's wealth depends upon accumulated treasure in the form of gold and silver. Because before almost 600 years ago, in mid 16th century, gold and silver were the currency trade between two countries at that time. This theory says that a nation should accumulate wealth in the form of gold and silver by encouraging export and discouraging imports. Means a country should accumulate wealth in the form of gold and silver as much as possible by encouraging export and discouraging imports. Mean it should import less product and it should export more product. This theory promoted imperialism, tariff, subsidies, militarism. Why we are saying that it promoted imperialism and militarism? Because at that time many countries invaded other countries for these resources. For example, Britain invaded India, so it made India as its colony, and the main, you can say that one of the cause to have grip on the resources available in India. Okay, so this theory promoted imperialism, militarism. Now we have theory of absolute advantage. Absolute advantage is a country's ability to produce a good or services more efficiently than its competitors. It refers to the superior production capabilities in a single area. Mean a country has more efficient production technique for a good or services as compared to its competitor, and that is in a single area. So we have a very simple example here, and we have a single area, and that is automobile sector. We have two countries, country A and country B, and we have a measuring unit in the form of labor hours for producing 1 unit of automobile for the said automobile. Here we say that country A produces 1 unit of a car, because we said that for producing 1 unit. So country A takes 10 labor hours for producing 1 unit of a car, and it takes 5 labor hours for producing 1 unit of a bike, while country B takes 10 labor hours to produce 1 unit of a car, and it takes 2 labor hours for producing 1 unit of a bike. So we can see that country B is more efficiently working because it produces 1 unit of a car and 1 unit of a bike in less time. So it has superior production capabilities as compared to country A. So we will say that country B has an absolute advantage over country A in producing both cars and bikes. Now we have theory of comparative advantage. A country has a comparative advantage over another country when it can produce a good or services at a lower opportunity cost. So I will explain the very simple concept of lowest or lower opportunity cost. There is an example that you have 1 million rupees in your pocket and you have two options available. Either you can start a business or you can go into a highly qualified university. But you decide to start the business. This doesn't mean that you have made a wrong decision, but you didn't accept or you didn't decide to go into the university, and that cost will be your lost opportunity or lower opportunity cost. It it could be the case that your decision was right, but you didn't carry on your studies, so that is your lost opportunity cost, or you can say it lower opportunity cost. So we will relate this opportunity cost in the example of comparative advantage. So the example is same for absolute advantage. We have discussed this before, and now we will discuss that how it could be transferred into comparative advantage. We said that country A, previously we said that country A is producing 1 unit of a car in 10 labor hours and 1 unit of a bike in 5 labor hours. So here are two scenarios. We say that country A decided that he won't produce cars anymore and he will produce bikes in place of cars. So that country was taking 10 labor hours for producing 1 unit of a car, and now he has decided that he will produce bikes instead of cars. So in 10 labor hours, how many bikes will be produced? Very simple. That country was taking 5 hours to produce one car, and here he has 10 labor hours available, so it will produce 2 bikes. Country A will produce 2 bikes for producing 1 unit. Very simple. 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2. Means country A decided that he won't produce car, he will produce bikes instead of cars, and in that capacity, that available labor hours, that country can produce 2 bikes. On the other side, the country decides that the country won't produce bikes, the country will produce cars instead of bikes. So the country producing 1 unit of a bike in 5 labor hours, and for these 5 hours the country A can produce 0.5 cars. How we will get 0.5? 5 divided by 10. First we had this from dividing 10 divided by 5, and now we will get this 5 divided by 10, 0.5 car. The very simple example, the very simple concept is that the country A, in this case country decides that he won't produce car, he is producing bikes for these labor hours. So he will produce 2 bikes in 10 labor hours, and in this case he will produce 0.5 car in 5 labor hours. The very same way, country B decides that he won't be producing cars anymore, he will produce bikes. So how much bikes will he produce in 8 labor hours? 4 bikes, because one bike was taking 2 labor hours and there are 8 labor hours available for a car. So he is not making car anymore, so 8 divided by 2, it will be 4, and in the same case it will be 0.25 cars. So we can see that a country A is producing 2 bikes and 0.5 cars, while country B is producing 4 bikes and 0.25s. And we can say that country A has a comparative advantage in producing cars, while country B has a comparative advantage in producing bikes. In this example, country B has absolute advantage in both cases, but here country A has comparative advantage in producing cars. How does it have comparative advantage? So let's discuss it. So we are seeing that it is producing 0.5 cars and it is producing against 2 bikes, and while country B is producing 4 bikes against 0.25 cars. So if there is a country that can produce both bikes and cars, shouldn't it be more specialized in one category, either bikes or cars? So in this case, it should country B should produce 4 bikes instead of producing 0.25 cars. On the other side, this ratio is not that much as in the case of country B. Means 2 bikes against 0.5 cars, it's okay. But 4 bikes against 0.25 cars, this goes for bikes. This option is much better. But in this case, 2 bikes against 0.5 cars, it is okay. This country can produce 0.5 cars, and it is comparatively having more advantage than country B, because it is producing 0.5 cars against 2 bikes, while it is producing 0.25 cars, less quantity of a car, against 4 bikes. So a country B should go for producing bikes, while country A should go for producing cars. So we said that a comparative advantage over another when it can produce a good or services at a lower opportunity cost, means low opportunity cost. So here if it produces cars and it doesn't, country B doesn't produces bikes, so there is a very high opportunity cost because the ratio is very much. But here if country B A produces bikes instead of cars, then there is also opportunity cost. Here is a lower opportunity cost, that country B should go for bikes, not producing cars. So this is a very simple example. Now we have factor proportions trade theory. A country that is relatively labor abundant, not capital, should specialize in the production and export of those products which are relatively labor intensive and should import those products which are capital intensive. Actually, there are two factors of production in this regard, labor and capital. So a very simple example here, if a country is labor intensive, okay, he has more labor, then it should rely on labor resources, and if it is capital intensive, then it should rely on capital. For example, if a labor intensive country is out there, and it should done work in which more labor is used, for example farming, and if there is a country with more capital available, then it should go for the projects which are for the products which are capital intensive, means IT sector, or maybe going in space as well. So now in the last we have the last example, product life cycle theory. It refers how a product evolves over time and across national borders. It's not a product life cycle of some product. It is complex. So here we have three countries. We have developed country, we have developing country, and we have inventors country. This country is producing the product. This is developing country, means it is some way in between, and this is developed country, means uh, it is developed country. Okay, it is inventors country, it is developed country, means it has resources, and this is developing countries, means this type of countries they don't have enough resources. And here is the product life cycle of the product. So this is a new product. We see that this is the inventors country line product life cycle. New product, it gets mature after some time, then it becomes standardized, and then this line goes from below this line. This is the export net. So above this line, there is the country is exporting that thing, and below this line the country is importing that thing. Now you can see that the country, this inventors country, first it when it produced a new product, it starts to export that product into other countries. Okay, the product gets mature, and then it gets standardized, and then it starts to import that product from other country. How is it possible? Because this was the inventor's country, because that country has moved on to some other products, to some more advanced technology, and if there are still need of that product for some population, for maybe some low category population, or at lower level financed position, then it can import that product from some other country. This country doesn't need to produce that product throughout the lifetime, for centuries, you can say that. Okay, America is a very simple example, that it is producing mobiles, iPhones in China. So major portion of the iPhones are being produced in China, or major component are being produced in China. So now the case of developing countries, but first we will see that what are doing developed countries. So when the product was launched into the market, the developed countries which were more stable financially, they started to import that product. Okay, they started to import that product, and after some time they developed their own industry in that line, and then they started to export that product, and then the circle goes on, the curve goes on. But in the case of developing countries, they started to import that product at a very later stage, because they were not financially strong. So when the product was mature and available in other countries, then they started to import that product. They kept on importing that product, and after some time, after quite a time, when other countries stopped producing that product, it was exporting that product. It was meeting its own need as well, and it was exporting that product as well. I will give you a very simple example. For example, uh, many years ago there were television sets in every country, and they were being manufactured, but now there are LCDs, LEDs. So there could be a case that a developed country or an inventor country, maybe USA or some other country, that invented that product of television, they are not making any televisions anymore, but there are some people that like to see movies or dramas on television. So they are importing that product from developing countries, because these developing countries are still producing television sets. So this is a very simple example. Still, if you have any question regarding product life cycle theory and especially theory of comparative advantage, you can drop a comment. So that was all from my side. Thank you.